Problem: G2 are losing Counter-Strike's greatest rifler, a man who can do it all with the rifle, but also help his IGL construct rounds on the fly. On the plus side, they have just received over $1 million in a buyout, and have a bunch of sticker money lying around just waiting to be used. G2 are an organisation who have strived and struggled towards building a team that could truly define an era, and losing NiKo probably is a few steps in the wrong direction. In order to figure out a way through this pickle, let's go through these issues and some solutions step by step. What exactly are G2 losing? Well, NiKo has been the face of international rosters for about a decade. From Mousesports to FaZe to now G2, he has been key to building up these teams, executing game plans, and dominating at the highest level year after year. NiKo's crosshair placement and adjustments are works of art, making him one of the finest aimers we've ever seen. Prior to his arrival, G2 was a team you could easily root for, but never truly believe in. After he joined, NiKo managed to drag the roster all the way to a major final, and then when improvements started coming in bit by bit, to a number of prestigious trophies. All of this despite the roster at various moments being incredibly short on firepower. NiKo has turned weak, middling rosters into contenders time and time again, so losing him is a test of the pieces that remain. Now I have to say, the G2 that's going to be left behind is far stronger and far more prepared to go on without him than last time this rumour came around. momentous has probably surpassed him as an individual by himself dominating this year, and ropz signing gives them another place to go in terms of rifle talent, but there's no denying the void is still immense. Losing his ability to frag in every position, his ability to construct rounds, his ability to lead by example and with his charisma is going to be hard to replace. But I think there's a way. G2 have a great reputation, as well as buckets of community support, stemming from great branding, honestly, some of the best socials game in the entire scene, the signing of beloved players, and of course, a long period of time, despite the lack of major wins, at the top end of the scene. Add to this their impact in other games, including, but certainly not limited to, winning 15 or 16, I think now, a lot of LEC splits, and they are a very attractive destination for players looking to further their career. On the financial side, there's no way that the buyout being talked about for NiKo could not be used to replace him. There is no one in the scene on the rifles who has as much talent, experience, and reputation. Very few can even surpass his individual impact, so let alone bringing all the rest of those things to the table. But how can G2 go about this? There are two main approaches. The first is to replace NiKo directly, find a player who's going to play his spots, replace his fragging impact, and essentially be NiKo 2.0. The other way is to believe in the players you have. You bring in a rifler who could sort of fill the CT roles, especially that ropz is going to be given up. ropz has been maybe the second or third best T player this year. I think potentially number one if you only include riflers. So giving him the full liberty also on the CT side to get out of some anchor spots, play more active positions, could do a lot for this roster. This time you'd sign a player more passive, a player who's going to be anchoring a lot of sites and playing more lurk positions on the T side in order to get ropz fully engaged. My preference is to go the second route. I've been a huge fan of ropz for years. He's a prospect of mine. I've been following him for a long time, and I think he's got all the key things it takes to be one of the best, just ready to go. And I think the upper management at G2 agree with me. Given some of the more recent statements we've heard about their vision for their Counter-Strike team and how they see the signings they've made and the loss of NiKo, we should be seeing a starring ropz, a new rifler to come in to fill in all the blanks, and a G2 that's ready to go. Now, of course, we don't actually need to change every single one of ropz CT positions, just a good chunk of them. For example, getting him more active in Mirage onto the connector rather than playing an anchor spot will just be a nice little tweak. Snax can also give up a lot of his spots. We'll get into that on some specific players later. And as well, Hunter, at this point in his career, probably shouldn't be getting star treatment. We're going to have a lot of options going forward, but I think we're going to focus in on a select few. There are key players I think we have to discuss, and there's a few that I think could be brought up but haven't quite made my list. Ultimately, I've brought this down to two styles of player, the very passive anchor lurker and what I'm going to call the flexible pseudo star. This is a player who, yes, does play some active roles, some rotator spots, can be a part of the brawl for map control or more aggressive opening and entry focused play, but can also play the anchor spots you need him to, be more of a trader and supportive piece, play the occasional lurk, a very master of all. Let's begin with the passive options. My dream pick for this is of course Bit. Now on paper, he fits all the roles I want, and he's been in amazing form. Some of the few overlaps he actually has with the current roster is that Snax plays some of his iconic anchor spots. Now it's a testament to Bit that he has iconic anchor spots. Only the very best actually can claim that. One of those being Pit on Inferno. Snacks, you have no right being there if Bit wants to play it. Figure something else out, bud. Bit is classically known for his mechanics, and I feel like he's almost not quite getting the credit he deserves. I mean, we know the Na'Vi system is thriving around this coach IGL duo, figuring everything out, getting it all perfectly sorted, so that everything just has to fall into place once on the server. But Bit has the mechanical potential to be a superstar. With these dynamic fragging metrics that I've been helping EDR develop, check him out on Twitter, we've actually found that Bit is far and away one of the most impressive riflers we have. He's one of the top 10 players in tier 1 at actually getting dynamic multi-kills, and then when it comes to dynamic singles, no one comes close. That guy can flick his crosshair onto a head like no one else. Another deep stat to add to this, thank you again EDR, is his high win rate of fair duels. That means crosshairs look in the same way, these players see each other, who kills who. Bit wins those kinds of fights at an incredibly high rate. Only maybe Donk and then a couple of AWPers can do it better than him. He is amazing. Another option in very much the same vein is Jimpphat. I don't care that he's incredibly young, to be honest. Jimmy is in the conversation for the best CT players, period. This upside makes the lack of real tangible results for Jimpphat so far kind of irrelevant. Like, yes, we haven't seen him go onto a big stage like at a Major, a Cologne, a Katowice, and shine, frag out, have even a classic map like we all remember Bit's Inferno from the Major final this year. Despite having a pretty weak Major himself, that Inferno was a classic. We don't really have that to point to currently, in my eyes, for Jimpphat, but who cares? He's a kid, he's outstanding. I think it's worth taking a shot. Another thing to add is that in terms of clutching, no one is better at finding kills than Jimpphat. This means in 2v3s, 3v3s, all these sorts of situations, late round, we need to close things out. I don't just mean 1vx's, because he also does win a lot of those, but every single thing you need a player who's clutch to do in the late round, Jimpphat does extremely well. Again, thank you EDR for the advanced stats that I'll be using for these sorts of metrics. These things are so damn cool. Now, I'm not going to pretend I haven't seen this tweet from KRL. Yes, Jimpphat may have already rejected G2. I'm not going to assume these rumours are the gospel truth, however. Hence why I'm including this option, but also, you know, you got to take everything with a pinch of salt right now. We don't even have a fully locked in version of Falcons. As I'm speaking, a news post has popped up saying Simple won't be joining Falcons, so it's very up in the air who's going where. We'll find out after the Major. I like this as a chance for G2 to take. ropz is another no-brainer that many people have called for, and he shares a lot of the same upside as Bit and Jimmy. As an added bonus, he has a huge experience advantage over these two young guns. With 5 MVPs and about a dozen EVPs, I want to say at least, I don't think this year's are all fully released, ropz has more than proved himself on the biggest stages in front of huge crowds and in the massive moments. The one thing that's holding me back, because in theory he should be a lock-in #1 pick, the reason he's below Bit and probably Maya's slightly below Jimmy as well at this point, is his current form. FaZe have struggled as a roster this year, and ropz not being able to find kills, find impact, has been a part of that. He's played a couple of events at an EVP level, most notably Pro League and probably IM Rio, and hasn't made a grand final with this team since Chengdu. That was back in April. Signing ropz would essentially be buying the dip, though his tenure in the scene would make it a reasonable risk. One of the big advantages with all these moves I've just listed is the weakening of a key rival. MOUZ, Na'Vi and FaZe are all teams who should be punching for grand finals and probably even titles at this point, with Na'Vi being on the edge of defining an era. Taking away a player who's key to any of these rosters' style would be a double win for G2 in my eyes. Now, we do have to consider the Hunter situation. For now, we have to assume he's not going anywhere. We don't have any rumours to the fact that he is going to be signing somewhere else or taking NiKo's sort of leave and potentially joining him in Falcons, seeing as we don't even know that roster. So I'm just going to have to go by the assumption that Hunter is on this roster and we're trying to make it work. Now the T-side roles is where we start to get into conflicts, and as well a lot of these passive players do, because Hunter is currently taking up majority of the lurking responsibilities for G2. This quite conflicts with NiKo being removed because, well, NiKo doesn't play those very passive anchor spots. He does a lot of assertive map control play, and we kind of want the people filling in to be able to either do that, or we force Hunter to take these spots, and that's going to get a bit messy. Signing any of these passive 3 likely results in him reverting to his T-style that he used to play kind of in 2020, potentially 2021. I think in G2 pre-NiKo, Hunter was far more aggressive, far more likely to be on the opening side, And I think he would, honestly likely be taking up a lot of the spots NiKo used to have. But I have a problem with this. We clearly don't have that same hunter, at least not consistently. His form has been waning all year, so also asking him to completely change his playstyle might not be the most ideal option for him right now. Now, some may argue that this shakeup will be exactly what we need to get him back into form, but I'd rather keep things the same. We're already trying to embed one player, screw trying to get another player to find his old form and playstyle. Let's just keep it simple. That's where this next batch of players comes in, as these guys, the mixed role pseudo stars, probably fill in the gaps a lot more smoothly. We again begin by poaching a player from Na'Vi. The Travis Kelce of Counter-Strike, also known as JL, has had a phenomenal year. He earned a well-deserved major MVP this year, as well as another MVP at Pro League, and has EVPs left, right and centre. When it comes to the big games, you quite often find Na'Vi needing big plays from JL. He fits nicely on the T side, being able to play a variety of styles. Most of the spots that NiKo leaves, he can easily jump into, and otherwise, he can make very quick adjustments because we've seen him play in a variety of ways across a lot of different teams in the past. On the CT side, things look peachy. He takes a good number of anchor spots, and on other maps where he could take a more aggressive role, we've seen him do it, and he can do it very well. Now, the benefits for G2 do not just end with JL's play. He is a huge figure within the community, thanks to, realistically, his abundant charisma. JL's popularity has skyrocketed past the point of just being Lithuania's golden boy. He now has a huge international following since being on Na'Vi and finding a lot of success, and also coming across so well in pictures, interviews, and other forms of media. Honestly, bringing over all those JL fans would be a huge boon for G2. He'll sell a lot of jerseys, and guess what? It's like signing a player who's past their prime but has a lot of fans, except he's in his prime. That's such a double bonus. He's only 25. I think they do a good job here signing JL. Another bonus, and this is a bit of a meta kind of point, but his energy seems quite infectious. He seems very loud, but mostly in a positive way, and I think that will help at least fill some of the void potentially left by NiKo in his departure. Team vibes are not often the reason a team entirely succeeds, but it definitely can be the reason a team fails. So losing a leading, charismatic figure could be a real problem. Bringing in another one solves it. Now, there are other players who could potentially fill these sorts of roles, but I think JL is the one who has the most extra added benefit. If we do want to talk about a player though who could, from deeper in the scene, come in and play these roles, and I think play them at a high level, we have to talk about Demko. He matches the roles that we need him to play almost perfectly, and he has the mechanical upside of a tier 1 player, but I think a lot of people might have slept on that. Monty made 0 big grand finals during his tenure, but we saw him with that roster play at a number of big events and play versus huge teams, and he never looked phased and he never looked out of his depth. I'm well aware that the current iteration of Monty probably doesn't fill you with a lot of confidence. They don't win a lot of games, he's not playing all the same roles he used to, but the fact that he's delivering still all his numbers, helping them get the few wins they do get, whilst playing some different styles, playing in a different language, shows to you how malleable he is, how adaptable he is, and how ready he really is to take on a new level of risk. Ultimately, I wouldn't put it past G2 to make a signing completely out of left field. You know, they could take Madden out of Falcons or sign some tier 2 player we're really not expected, like Nimanha, Roga, Ships, some guy like that just doesn't really make sense to any of us, but to someone behind the scenes does. Maybe even a bigger shuffle is coming as the season's ending. Falcons are going to throw a lot of money around to try and build their dream roster, and G2 might lose more than just NiKo. Or they might feel like they need to replace more than just NiKo. Originally, the script for this video did have me just going on and on and on. I had an extra 3 or 4 pages of script dedicated to multiplayer replacements, like if we had to lose NiKo and Hunter, or NiKo and Hunter, but then we decided to lose Snacks as well and Taz because we thought, maybe to rebuild a squad, we need a better Coach IGL duo for that specific task. It was endless. But honestly, the team that comes out of the other end, if you take either of these paths, take players I suggested, take other players, it's going to be a little weakened, but still very dangerous. You still have, at the top end, m0NESY and ropz, who are both very young, but have shown so much promise this year. You are in safe hands, and you almost can't fuck this up. I'm not saying you can't fuck this up, but you definitely can get it right with just a kind of right move. You're not that far off being an elite team after losing NiKo. But I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments who you'd bring in. If you would make multiple changes, what would you go for? I'm very curious to find out. I do read all the comments, even if I don't always respond to them, or some of them are essays, bro. Like, I'm not reading 15 pages of YouTube comment, but I do notice them. So thank you for leaving a comment if you did. If you enjoyed, leave a like, and sub if you want to see more content. Members get access to this video early and a bunch of other stuff, as well as voting rights. And we're soon going to be launching the Discord again, where members will have their own chat, their own channels, and more access to me to have just general day-to-day conversations about Counter-Strike. So be sure to check that out when I finally release it. I'll post an announcement. But all right, thank you for your time. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.